Hi, I'm Gary White for Central Kentucky Television. I'm here with Marlon Howard, who is the fire chief for the City of Bardstown Fire Department, as well as for the Bardstown-Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department. And during the fiscal court meeting today, there was a discussion. The mayor of Bardstown, John Royalty, was on hand, as well as several members of the fire department. And they were discussing with the fiscal court the contract negotiations that have been ongoing with the corporation that oversees the Bardstown-Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. So during this discussion, which this contract that you currently have expires on June 30th between the corporation.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. There was discussion as to potentially separating the use of facilities and lots of stuff between the City of Bardstown as well as the Bardstown-Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department. Is that correct?
Correct. That's what the if the term of that contract expired, that's what that would mean. What we have wanted to do for some time is to look at the possibility of actually merging these two departments closer together. But during this contract negotiations, it has not proven to be able to come to a negotiated term to extend that contract or modify that contract. So now that's where we're at, is to look, are we actually going to separate, or are we going to find some way to bring these back together?
Okay. So during the discussions today, the mayor mentioned that he had mentioned to you that he would like for you to decide whether you want to stay with the City of Bardstown or with the Bardstown-Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department, and you had given an answer during the meeting.
Correct. As one chief over both entities, and the mayor giving a request by his will of saying that he's my boss, basically, to choose one or the other. My decision was very hard. I feel very loyal to the corporation. Those men and and women at times that have volunteered for that corporation put me in this position. And my family, much of my family and friends live in the community. But I believe that by staying with the City of Bardstown, the corporation will appoint a new chief. We will be able to work together that way better than the possibility of me going with the corporation and the city having a chief come in that may or may not care about continuing any type of working relationship.
So let's go back a little bit for some history here. So we're talking about the two different fire departments, the City of Bardstown and the Bardstown-Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department. How long have they kind of worked and commingled?
For years, and it goes back. I'll give you my brief nickel tour of all of it. The Bardstown Fire Department originally started in 1806 and operated under the City of Bardstown up until 1966, when the corporation formed the Bardstown-Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department. Members got together and incorporated that department. As the Fire Commission came into play in Frankfort, and fire departments were starting to be recognized on a state level, it was actually 1995 that the City of Bardstown Fire Department received its number to be recognized in Frankfort. So they had been two different entities. Then they were absolutely recognized as two different entities. As the name implies, Bardstown/Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department, the entities had been very closely related for many, many years. Just due to the different revenue streams, the different managements of the two departments, the different demographics that they're serving, it had become cumbersome, if you will, to continue to work those differences. So what I had suggested when the mayor had asked about this was to have a professional team of consultants come in, tell us what we're doing well, what we need to improve, what our services would need to look like 10 and 15 years from now, and have this laid out. And that could have been part of the negotiations, but not as a organizational member of that. I'm an adjunct member of the corporation's board. The mayor made it very clear that he was going to negotiate with the chairman, and those negotiations have brought us to this point. I still hope that we can work something out, but we'll just have to see.
So we are still about 45, a little less than 45 days out from the end of the contract, so there is still some time for negotiations, which are...
That is correct. And, main thing that I've said in the past is to assure the community that the fire departments are going to be there to serve the community in one fashion or another. When people call, what do they want to show up? Big red truck. They don't want to know what all this is behind the scenes, and we're going to do our best to take care of it appropriately.
We've talked in the past that many of the people serve on both fire departments. Is that correct?
That is correct. The volunteer members for the corporation are the one and the same members that serve for the city of Bardstown.
So would a separation affect that?
We absolutely do not want that to happen. We want those people, they're more than welcome to serve on both departments, and we would encourage that.
Okay. Now, if it doesn't come to terms, how will that impact the Bardstown Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department? Because they'll have to move to a new facility, is that correct?
They would acquire a new facility and operate their business very much like they do now, just from a new location.
So we'll wait to see. So the negotiations are ongoing, right? So it's the mayor and the chairman of the commission who are doing the negotiations?
Negotiating, that's correct.
Okay. Now, how's the fiscal court factor into the negotiations?
Fiscal court comes into play in that the corporation's funding mechanism is through the fiscal court by being placed on the tax bills of those residents. So if there were an adjustment to be made to the funding of the corporation, it would need to be approved by fiscal court.
Okay. Now, also there was talk about the mayor was saying that he would like to see a 24/7 fire department for the city of Bardstown. Have they been part of the negotiations as well? Has that issue been a part of it?
I had said that that's a separate but related issue, in that adding staffing to reduce response times is just a good, solid idea anyway. But is it related as we come to this juncture and try to consolidate or separate the two departments? Absolutely. But it was on the table even before.
So right now, the separation, if it occurs, wouldn't it be like July 1st? It wouldn't be a 24/7 Bardstown Fire Department. That would be something that would be possibly in the future.
That's correct.
Okay. Again, I've been talking with Marlon Howard, who is the fire chief currently for the City of Bardstown Fire Department, as well as the Bardstown Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department. Now, during this meeting, you actually did say if negotiations don't continue, that you would stay with the City of Bardstown and resign as chief of the Bardstown Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department. When would that occur?
Right now, it would be set to occur June the 30th. It would coincide with the contract date when the contract runs out.
I'm here with Stacy Faulkner, who is chairman of the Bardstown Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department Board of Directors. Okay, and you're the chairperson.
Correct.
So there's been negotiations going on with the City of Bardstown regarding their contract that is about to expire in June, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I was talking with Marlon Howard just recently, the fire chief, and the status of those negotiations as of right now are looking how?
When I became the chairman in April, we started some negotiations to extend the current contract that we have with the city. There was a deadline put in place by the mayor. It didn't get met in time because me just starting being the chairperson. At that time, he delivered a proposal to the corporation that ended up ultimately being rejected by the board.
What were some? Do you know the details of the proposal? What were the elements of the proposal that were disagreeable?
Probably some of the key ones was some internal corporation plans that we have, as truck replacements, substation maintenance, and stuff like that. Those were probably some of the main issues that were, were rejected from initially.
Now we're talking about, so there's a contract between the Bardstown Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department and the City of Bardstown. What does the contract include? What are some of the elements of the contract? Like, I know that there's the building as part of that, correct?
The contract as it is, as we're presently under, was for $140,000 a year. $60,000 of that went to payroll for part-time employees that the corporation was to furnish. The other $80,000 of that went to half the chief's salary, with the remaining money going toward the rent and utilities of the Station 1 that we have in town.
Okay. So that is the main hub right now for both the City of Bardstown as well as the Bardstown Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department is the building right by the City Hall, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So What would be the outcome if these negotiations don't come to terms? Where would the Bardstown Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department move to?
Right now, I mean, it's obviously we're hoping for the best, planning for the worst, so we're out looking for a building right now. Physical court, when we was doing some of these negotiations about three and a half years ago, they had said they had a building at that time. It's going to be up now, going back to the physical court and see what they still have available. If not, trying to find another home.
Now, one thing too, during the fiscal court meeting, the mayor had mentioned that he's been doing the negotiations primarily with you. Is that correct, or with the chairperson over these past 6 months? Is that correct?
Well, there was another chairperson in place before that, and so I mean, I don't know what negotiations he had with him. Mine has been just started, like I said, since April.
Okay. But the contract is actually between the city and your board of directors, your commission, correct, right? So that would be the person to negotiate with.
Yeah, correct. Mm-hmm.
So if the contract is not, if you can come to terms by June 30th, how many days do you have, or what's the time period for making these transitions?
The mayor has given us 90 days starting July 1 to be out of that building. And maybe a 30-day extension, but.
Okay. Now, also, as I said, I talked with the fire chief, Marlon Howard, who is currently the fire chief for the city of Bardstown as well as for the Bardstown Bardstown Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department. If the negotiations don't continue, he would be leaving his position with the Bardstown Nelson County Volunteer Fire Department as of June 30th. Correct. What would be the plan for finding a new fire chief then?
The chiefs for the corporation has always been elected from the membership internally. So at that point in time, there'd be a vacancy. So the way the bylaws are currently set up, then we would elect another chief from within internal.
Okay. And the hope, as with Chief Howard was saying, is that there'll still be a mutual working between the two fire departments.
Yeah, if the city calls for the corporation's help, yeah, we're going to go to it just like we would help Bloomfield or Boston or New Haven or any other fire department. If we can help them, we're going to plan on going help them.
Okay. So right now it is that the contract's going to end on June 30th. Are there any more negotiations scheduled, or how's it looking right now?
From the rejection letter that we give for the mayor's proposal, part of that was to see if we could get the help of a professional mediator. We have not heard back if the mayor wants to meet or not. From what he said in the physical court meeting today, there's nothing really to mediate, so I guess there's nothing planned for the future.
So I'll wait and see how they continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, this has been Gary White for Central Kentucky Television.